Most intense Supercross and Motocross battles. At 60 miles an hour, the gap between first and second place can be less than a bike lane. Close enough to eat each other's roost, close enough to hear each other's engines. That's where this sport gets interesting. Not in the blowouts, not in the runaway wins, in the moments where two riders are so evenly matched that the only thing left to separate them is who wants it more. That's what this list is. Ryan Dungey versus Ryan Villopoto, Minneapolis 2013. We start in 2013 at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome in Minneapolis, Dungey's home race. The crowd was already loud before the gate even dropped, but standing between him and a hometown win was Ryan Villopoto, the reigning champion. 5 straight wins coming into that night, and absolutely zero interest in making it easy for anyone. Villopoto grabbed the lead early and built a gap. Dungey didn't panic. He sat behind him for 16 laps, close enough to study every line, every section where Villopoto was leaving even a fraction of time on the table. Patient, calculated. Then, with 4 laps to go, he started turning the screw. The gap closed. The crowd got louder. They traded the lead and Villopoto came right back each time, making Dungey earn every single inch. Dungey held it to the line. Afterward, he said Villopoto kept him honest the whole way. Coming from those two, that's about as high a compliment as you'll get. Ken Roczen versus Eli Tomac, Millville 2014. People talk about the Roczen-Tomac rivalry like it started in the 450 class. It didn't. These two had already gone to war in the 250s, where Roczen edged Tomac by just 2 points for the 2013 West title. By the time Millville came around in 2014, both were rookies in the 450 class, and neither had forgotten how that 250 season ended. On the Mount Martin Hills, Roczen got out front and Tomac came after him immediately. Roczen was scrubbing everything aggressively, keeping the bike low, getting his wheels back on the ground as fast as possible to maximize drive out of every jump. Textbook defensive riding. Tomac wasn't reacting to any of it. He just stayed right there, lap after lap, close enough to be uncomfortable, waiting for his moment. That moment came and Tomac took it. Clean pass, no drama, no help from anyone. Just better timing and better execution at the right time. Once out front, he never looked back. It was only his 4th race in the 450 class, and he had just outdueled one of the sharpest riders in the sport over an entire moto. The 250 rivalry had officially followed them up a class. The KTM Civil War, Dungey versus Roczen, Glen Helen, 2014. There's a particular kind of tension that only exists between two teammates. You train together, you know each other's lines, you know exactly where the other guy is vulnerable. And when the gate drops, none of that matters anymore. Glen Helen, 2014. Roczen was the shiny new thing at KTM. Fast, exciting, already looking like he belonged at the front of the premier class. Dungey was the diesel, quiet, methodical, the kind of rider who doesn't make headlines but never stops coming. Roczen led Moto2 for almost the entire race. Dungey sat behind him the whole time and waited. With just a few corners left, he saw his window, went inside and took the lead with the finish line in sight. Roczen had nothing left to answer with. Dungey crossed first. Dungey put it perfectly afterward. Just a game of cat and mouse the whole time. That's exactly what it was. Two guys who'd been riding together all week, who knew each other better than almost any other 2 riders on the gate. And it still came down to one move in the final corners. No teammates on the last lap. Daytona 2023. Tomac versus Webb. Eli Tomac and Daytona have a relationship that nobody else in the sport has been able to interrupt for a long time. 6 wins coming in, his own record. And Cooper Webb showed up with a very clear plan to change that. Webb took the lead at turn 2 and controlled the race. He's one of the best in the sport at dictating pace, fast enough to stay out front, calculated enough to never do anything that opens the door. For the first half of the race, he had Tomac exactly where he wanted him. Then, Webb hit neutral coming out of a rhythm section. The bike stumbled. Tomac was through before Webb could even react. Out in front, Tomac rode the kind of race Daytona demands, aggressive in the sand sections, precise in the rhythm lanes, never giving Webb a moment to reset. Webb pushed to the end and finished a second and a half back. 7 Daytona wins, his own record extended. On a track that chews people up every single year, Tomac has figured out something nobody else has. Tomac versus the Lawrence brothers, 2024 to 2025. The 2024 Super Motocross playoffs gave us the clearest picture yet of where this sport is heading. Tomac, Jet Lawrence, and Hunter Lawrence, 3 of the best riders on the planet, all on factory equipment, none of them willing to give an inch. Tomac and Jet were the first 2 at the front, trading positions and pushing each other through every section. Coming out of the split lane, Jet found the rollers just before the sand section and used them perfectly, getting the drive he needed to make the pass on Tomac and take the lead. It was a calculated move on a specific part of the track that he clearly identified as his window. Then, in a separate race during that same playoff stretch, all 3 of them ended up in it together. Tomac, Jet, Hunter, all within striking distance, all racing each other like there was nothing left to lose. Hunter read the battle between the other 2 perfectly, working his way into the mix and making it a 3-way fight that had the whole paddock talking. That's the 450 class right now. Nobody gets a comfortable lap, and on any given weekend, the guy trying to pass you might be your own brother. Lawrence versus Gazer, MX on 23. Ernie France, the 2023 Motocross of Nations. Jet Lawrence crashed at turn 4 early in the race and found himself buried in the pack. For most riders, that's a damage limitation day. For Jet, it was just a different kind of race. He picked people off lap by lap, setting purple sector times as he carved his way back through the field. By the final lap, he'd caught Tim Gazer and the racing instincts kicked in immediately. Jet made his move going into the final turn, left the door open slightly, and Gazer saw it and went for the inside. But Jet had it covered. He executed a cutback, squared the corner, got back on the gas, and it became a flat-out drag race to the line. He held Gazer off by 11/100ths of a second, 6th place, after crashing out of contention early and fighting through the entire field to get back there. The commentators called it one of the best rides of the whole race, and it's hard to argue. That's the kind of racing that reminds you why Jet Lawrence is in a different category. Look back at every battle on this list and find the common thread. None of them were decided at the start, not one. Dungey spent 16 laps waiting. Tomac spent an entire moto stalking Roczen, reading every line, waiting for the right moment to make his move. Jet Lawrence fought back from a crash and held his nerve on the very last lap to make a pass stick by less than 1/10 of a second. The riders who won these battles weren't necessarily the fastest on that day. They were the ones who stayed composed long enough for one moment to open up and then took it without hesitation. That's the part of this sport that never gets old. Which battle on this list do you think was the most intense? Drop it in the comments. And if you're new here, subscribe. We're just getting started. See you at the gate drop.